Okay, so now let's take a look at section 3. Since we know what nonverbal communication is and we understand some of its characteristics, let's look at why we use nonverbal communication. And remember, this is also a very important component of your essay. So before you jump into this section, it would be a good idea to look on page 174 and assess your nonverbal immediacy behaviors, and then if you go to page 193, you can score your behaviors. So why do we use, for what purposes do we use nonverbal communication? The big one is creating and maintaining relationships. So if you've ever paid attention to children, I'm thinking 3, 4, I'm not sure older than that, they will walk up to someone and say, "Do you want to be my friend?" We don't do that as adults, and we don't walk up to people and say something like, well, I'm a friendly person with a great sense of humor. We don't verbalize that, but there are ways that we can express this non-verbally. And so you kind of, by the smile on your face or how close you're standing to people or whatever it is, you consciously or subconsciously, you act in a certain way to present a certain image to people. And we'll talk about that in a little while. That's how you create a relationship. And this is all part of the relational dimension of a message. And I thought this was really interesting. In an established relationship, how do you let somebody know that, or why should you let someone know that you like them? Let's see. Where was this? On the job, supervisors who offer nonverbal cues of liking can increase subordinates' job motivation, job satisfaction, and affinity for their boss. That's interesting. So if your boss lets you know, doesn't say, "I like you, I think you're a good person," but however, nonverbally lets you know that they do like you, you're going to be more motivated. And I'm going to sneeze in a minute. Okay. Oh, allergies. Okay. So we use, think about someone that you have a very close relationship with, a family member, let's say, romantic partner. And one way that you express that your emotional climate, we'll talk about that in chapter 12, that things are good, you sit closer to them, you hold hands with them, when you're talking to them, you turn towards them. But if you want to signal that you are unhappy with them, you'll sit farther away, you won't put your hand on their shoulder, you maybe turn your body away. Okay, so this might be an interesting topic for if you want to do an observation. It says, observe the interaction of people in relationships without paying attention to their words. Watch couples or families in restaurants or other public places. I mean, if you are going out in public and you decide you want to do an observation, this is something that you can look at. You're not going to be able to say for sure unless you go up and afterwards and say, "I noticed that the two of you were not facing each other, and I think that you are probably having an argument." That could be a little iffy, but you could just do an observation on what they've done to indicate what you are interpreting as a problem in the relationship or a good relationship. Okay. A really easy one is we use nonverbal communication to regulate interactions. The nonverbals that we use are called regulators. For example, if I am talking and you are trying to jump in to say something, I will hold up my index finger and that means what? 1 minute. Okay. How do I cue you that I'm done talking? Well, actually, we noticed that. So I'm talking about something, and when I come to the end, my voice will go down just a little bit. You have to be paying attention to that intonation to know that. I always say there's a yoga DVD that I do on occasion, and there's a yoga move that I really dislike. It's called sun salutation, and basically you're up, you're down, your legs are kind of in the push-up position, you're downward facing dog, and you're up, you're down, and it's just, I find it exhausting. And he's going, this and this and this, and then he'll say, and, whatever pose. And it's that and where the voice goes up and then down that I know, oh, yay, we're at the end. Okay, how about eye contact? How do we use eye contact to regulate nonverbal communication? All right, how do we use eye contact to regulate verbal? Basically, if I make eye contact I'm talking, and I want to keep talking, I will probably not make eye contact with you. And when I'm signaling that it's okay for you to talk, I will look at you. Okay, but think about other ways that you could regulate conversation nonverbally, either with gestures or with the tone of your voice. The third function of nonverbal communication is to influence others. Okay, how can we capture someone's attention? The way we dress, the way we do our hair, how loudly we laugh. I mean, there are all kinds of ways that we could capture attention. How do we let someone know that we like them? Okay, some people, you might laugh at someone's jokes more. You might, if you are a person who's a touchy person, you might, that light tap on the forearm. How do you show that you have power? Okay, I'm not sure about that one. Part of that is probably your posture. You stand up straighter. I'm going to ask you on the next slide, I'm going to suggest that you watch Amy Cuddy's TED Talk, where she talks about one of the ways that animals, including humans, show power. Okay, how do you boost credibility? How do you let people know that they should they should believe you? Okay, that's the next. I always, influencing others and managing impressions, I always try to mush together. Okay, so you're going for a job interview. You will need to influence others. You want people to think that you are competent and you are whatever the job requires. What do? I mean, you can't walk in there, maybe you can, and you say, I'm the best person for the job, I'm competent, I'm likable, and blah, 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 blah. Probably you've spent a very careful attention to how you dress, how you accessorize, the whole concept of the power tie, or I love earrings, big dangly earrings, and it's always a struggle for me when I'm going to an interview. Well, I haven't interviewed in a long time, but to have to wear sedate earrings because that's not really who I am. So I'm being maybe a little deceptive. Okay, the firm handshake. You don't want to do that. I hate the wimpy handshake. Okay, so think about other ways that we can use nonverbal communication to influence other people. Also, the way changing our nonverbal behavior can affect the way we feel about ourselves. So I'm going to kind of briefly summarize Amy Cuddy's main point. That she says our nonverbal behaviors. Oh, wait, hold on. We know that if we change our nonverbal behaviors, we can change the way we feel about ourselves. And she gives the example of someone has done an experiment where they have people hold a pencil in their mouth. And when you do that, which I would not want to be part of that experiment, you have the corners of your mouth go up. And she said that people actually, because you have that Mona Lisa smile, you feel happier. I can't imagine feeling happy holding a pencil in my teeth, and she also talks about if you're the kind of person who sits at a desk or a chair and you're all hunched over, you're going to feel powerless. And if you expand, if you take up more space, you're going to feel more powerful. I recommend that you watch Amy Cuddy's TED Talk. It is one of the most watched TED Talks. It is not without controversy, but it is still worth watching. When I say it's not without controversy, this is one of these social science experiments where the results have been a little more challenging to duplicate. So, okay. But At the end, tell me if you can tell me about it. At the end, tell me about the Wonder Woman pose. Concealing or deceiving. We use nonverbals to make people think that we are telling the truth when we are not telling the truth. There are many people, my younger sister included, who are sure that they can tell when someone is lying. But what we know is that most of us, unless we have had some serious training, are only accurate about 50% of the time. So it is definitely not easy to tell when someone is lying. However, in general, people who are lying have more speech disturbances. They will say, they'll have longer pauses. Again, in general, and their pupils will dilate. So they're even if you are trying to lie convincingly, you are most likely giving yourself away in these tiny little expressions called micro expressions. What is really, do they have it here? Basically, well, I'll talk about that later. Okay, there was a show on TV. The first 2 seasons were really good, and then it went downhill. It was called Lie to Me. So in Blackboard, I have a brief clip from Lie to Me, and basically these micro expressions that indicate that that a person is not being truthful. It's called leakage. Like basically the truth is leaking out. Okay, so you should watch it. It's entertaining, but we overestimate our ability to detect others' lies. In other words, we're not as good at catching deception as we think we are. We have a strong tendency to judge others' messages as truthful. In other words, we want to believe people wouldn't lie to us, which means we're not looking for it, which means we're not detecting it. But anyways, this is one of the functions of nonverbal communication. And the last one is we use nonverbal communication to manage impressions, which to me is, I would say influencing others and influencing ourselves are a subset of managing impressions, but the textbook doesn't, so what do they know? No. Okay. Remember in chapter 3, we talked about presenting ourselves and what are some of the ways that we manage our impression, manner, appearance, and setting. So think about this now in terms of the nonverbals, the way we act. You are trying to present yourself as confident. How do you act? How do you dress? Right? What is the, you want people to think you're perpetrating a con, and you want people to think that you are rich and successful. Okay, what are the physical items you would surround yourself with? You might, let's say you're doing a con, you're going to rent a very expensive car, and I have no idea what they would be because I don't drive very expensive cars. Okay, you want people to think that you are just very kind and very humble. And I'm not saying you're lying. This could be the truth. Like what are how do you hold yourself? What are the nonverbals, the manner, your body language? How are you acting? How are you dressing? What are the physical items we surround ourselves with? Think about when you were a teenager, maybe even an early teen. Did you have posters in your room? What posters did you have? How were you? You were basically telling the world without actually using words, this is who I am. Okay, so remember, this is an important part of the essay. So, do you know what the 6 functions of nonverbal communication are? When you do the essay, you do not have to write about all 6 of them. You're going to write about only those functions that you saw in your observation or in your experiment. All right. And in a minute, we'll get on to the last section.